Ladies and gentlemen, today I want to speak about something very small that carries a very big meaning, bread, and why we should never throw it in the trash. Bread represents life in the most direct, honest, and universal way possible. From the earliest days of human history, bread has stood at the center of survival. Long before luxury, before variety, before abundance, there was the simple need to eat in order to live. Bread emerged as the answer to that need. It is not accidental that across civilizations, cultures, and religions, bread became the symbol of sustenance itself. To speak about bread is to speak about life, because without nourishment, life cannot continue. When we treat bread casually or throw it away, we are not just discarding food. We are dismissing the very foundation of human existence. Life begins with dependency. From the moment a human being is born, survival depends on being fed. Bread, or what it represents, is among the first gifts life gives us. It is energy, strength, and continuity. A person may live without comfort, without wealth, without pleasure, but cannot live without food. Bread, therefore, becomes more than an object. It becomes a reminder of how fragile life truly is. Every crumb holds within it the power to sustain a heartbeat, to give strength to weary hands, to keep a mind alert and a body standing. When bread is wasted, it reflects a forgetting of that fragility. Bread also represents life because it is earned through struggle. Life itself is a struggle. Nothing valuable comes without effort. Bread is the final result of patience, endurance, and time. Seeds are planted and nurtured. Crops are protected from weather and pests. Harvests require labor, processing, and skill. Each stage mirrors life's journey: effort, waiting, uncertainty, and hope. Bread teaches us that life is built step by step, through perseverance. Throwing bread into the trash erases that story. It reduces a journey of effort into a moment of carelessness. There is also a moral dimension to bread as life. Life is sacred, and anything that sustains it deserves respect. When people learn to respect bread, they internalize respect for life itself. This is why societies that honor food tend to value human dignity more deeply. Waste does not happen in isolation. It grows from an attitude of excess and detachment. When food is seen as disposable, life slowly becomes disposable as well. Respecting bread builds an inner discipline that says, what sustains life must never be treated lightly. Bread connects us to others. Life is not lived alone, and neither is bread produced alone. A single loaf reflects cooperation among countless people. This interconnectedness mirrors human life itself. We survive through community. Bread reminds us that no one is truly independent. Even the wealthiest person depends on farmers they have never met, on workers whose names they will never know. To throw bread away is to deny that connection, to act as though life exists in isolation. Honoring bread restores awareness that life is shared and that responsibility extends beyond the self. Hunger reveals the true meaning of bread as life. For someone who is hungry, bread is not ordinary. It is hope. It is relief. It is the difference between despair and strength. Those who have never experienced hunger may not fully grasp this, which is why waste often grows where abundance exists. Yet life does not lose its value simply because it is comfortable. Bread still carries the same power it always did. Remembering hunger, even if it is not our own, keeps us human. It reminds us that life's essentials are never guaranteed. Bread also represents continuity of life across generations. Parents work to provide bread for their children. Children grow strong and eventually provide bread for others. This cycle sustains families, communities, and nations. When bread is disrespected, that continuity is weakened. The lesson passed down becomes one of carelessness instead of responsibility. Teaching respect for bread is therefore teaching respect for the future. It shapes how the next generation will value life, resources, and each other. On a deeper level, bread represents the quiet miracle of daily existence. People often search for meaning in dramatic events, yet life itself is sustained by simple, repeated acts: eating, working, resting. Bread is part of that quiet miracle. It appears ordinary precisely because it is constant. But constancy should never be confused with insignificance. The most important things in life are often the most regular. Breathing, heartbeat, nourishment. None are exciting, yet without them nothing else matters. Bread symbolizes this truth. To throw it away is to overlook the miracle hidden in the ordinary. Respecting bread does not require poverty or fear of scarcity. It requires awareness. It means recognizing that life is sustained by gifts we did not create alone. It means choosing mindfulness over habit. When someone pauses before discarding bread, they are pausing before discarding life-sustaining value. That pause is powerful. It reawakens gratitude, responsibility, and humility. These qualities strengthen individuals and societies far more than abundance ever could. In conclusion, bread represents life because it sustains the body, reflects human effort, connects communities, teaches humility, and reminds us of life's fragility and value. To throw bread in the trash is not a small act. It is a statement, even if unintended, that life's essentials are disposable. When we choose instead to respect bread, we affirm life itself. We say that what sustains life deserves honor, care, and gratitude. By protecting something as simple as bread, we protect something as profound as our humanity. Behind every piece of bread is human effort, patience, and sacrifice, even if we rarely stop to think about it. Bread does not appear by magic on store shelves or dining tables. It is the final outcome of a long chain of human labor, much of it invisible, much of it physically demanding, and much of it underappreciated. When bread is thrown into the trash, it is not only food that is wasted. It is the dignity of work, the value of effort, and the respect owed to human struggle that are discarded along with it. The journey of bread begins far from the comfort of our homes. It starts in fields where farmers work with the soil, often under harsh conditions. They wake early, rely on unpredictable weather, and face risks that most people never encounter. Drought, floods, pests, and market uncertainty constantly threaten their livelihood. Yet they continue, season after season, because the world depends on their labor. This effort is not glamorous, and it is rarely rewarded with recognition, but without it, there would be no bread. When we throw bread away, we overlook this foundational labor that sustains society. From the fields, grain moves through many hands. Workers harvest it, transport it, clean it, and process it into flour. Each step requires time, machinery, skill, and human supervision. Mill workers ensure quality. Bakers rise before dawn to prepare dough. Ovens are monitored. Deliveries are made. None of this happens instantly. Each stage involves human attention and responsibility. A single loaf of bread may represent hours, sometimes days, of cumulative labor. Treating it as disposable erases the value of that collective effort. Human effort is not just physical, it is emotional and mental as well. For many people, bread is tied directly to their livelihood. Their income, stability, and dignity depend on producing it well. A baker takes pride in the texture, flavor, and freshness of bread. A farmer takes pride in a successful harvest. When bread is wasted, it sends a silent message that this pride, care, and craftsmanship do not matter. Over time, such attitudes weaken respect for honest work and the people who perform it. Respecting bread is therefore an act of respect for workers. It acknowledges that labor has value even when we do not see the laborer. Modern life often distances us from the origins of what we consume. Supermarkets hide the process, making food appear effortless. This illusion makes waste easier. When effort is invisible, appreciation disappears. Reconnecting bread with human work restores balance. It reminds us that comfort is built on the shoulders of others. There is also an ethical dimension to effort. Many people work hard not only for themselves, but for their families. Bread puts children through school, pays rent, and keeps households afloat. For some, producing or selling bread is the difference between security and hardship. Wasting bread indirectly disrespects these realities. It reflects a mindset that takes advantage of systems without honoring the people within them. A society that fails to respect effort gradually loses its sense of fairness and responsibility. Human effort in bread production also reflects cooperation. No single person can produce bread alone at scale. It requires coordination, trust, and shared purpose. Farmers rely on suppliers, bakers rely on farmers, consumers rely on all of them. This network mirrors society itself. When we value bread, we value cooperation. When we waste it, we undermine the sense that shared effort deserves care. Small acts of waste accumulate into large acts of disrespect toward collective human work. Moreover, respecting effort builds character. When a person learns to value the labor behind food, they become more mindful in other areas of life. They waste less, complain less, and appreciate more. This mindset encourages humility because it acknowledges dependence on others. It also encourages gratitude because effort becomes visible again. Throwing bread away carelessly does the opposite. It trains indifference and entitlement. Effort also carries moral weight because time is finite. The hours spent producing bread are hours of human life that will never return. Wasting bread is, in a sense, wasting time that someone else gave. That realization alone should inspire caution and respect. When we pause before discarding bread, we are honoring not only food but time, energy, and life invested in it. Respect for effort does not mean never discarding food under any circumstances. It means avoiding carelessness. It means planning better, taking only what we need, and finding alternatives before waste. Sharing, reusing, or composting are all ways of acknowledging effort rather than ignoring it. These actions transform awareness into responsibility. In conclusion, behind every piece of bread is human effort that deserves recognition and respect. Farmers, workers, bakers, and countless others invest their time, strength, and dignity to ensure that bread reaches our tables. When we throw bread in the trash, we devalue that effort and dull our sense of responsibility. By choosing to respect bread, we honor human labor, restore appreciation for work, and reaffirm the dignity of those who sustain our lives through their efforts. Millions of people go hungry every day, and this reality gives bread a meaning far deeper than convenience or habit. Hunger is not an abstract idea or a distant statistic. It is a lived experience for vast numbers of human beings across the world. It is the pain of an empty stomach, the weakness that drains the body, and the anxiety that fills the mind when there is no certainty of the next meal. When bread is thrown into the trash, it stands in sharp contrast to this reality. It highlights the imbalance between abundance and deprivation, between those who have more than enough and those who struggle to survive. Hunger strips life down to its most basic need. When someone is hungry, dignity, ambition, and comfort fade into the background. All that matters is food. Bread in such moments is not ordinary. It is survival, it is strength, it is hope. A single piece of bread can restore energy, calm fear, and allow a person to continue living another day. Knowing this, wasting bread becomes more than an act of carelessness. It becomes a moral issue. It reflects a failure to acknowledge the suffering of others. Many people who waste food do not do so intentionally or cruelly. Often, it is the result of distance from hunger, distance from poverty, distance from hardship. When hunger is not personally experienced, it becomes easier to forget. But forgetting does not erase reality. Somewhere, at the very moment bread is being discarded, someone else is searching for food, skipping meals, or feeding their children less so they can eat more. This contrast should trouble the conscience of any thoughtful person. Hunger is not limited to one region or one type of person. It affects children, the elderly, refugees, workers, and families. It exists in both poor and wealthy societies. Sometimes it is caused by conflict, sometimes by economic inequality, sometimes by natural disaster, and sometimes by systemic neglect. Regardless of the cause, the result is the same: human beings denied a basic necessity. Bread, as a symbol of nourishment, stands at the center of this injustice. When it is wasted, the gap between abundance and hunger grows wider. Throwing bread away also reflects a missed opportunity. Every piece of bread that is wasted could have been shared, saved, or used more thoughtfully. While one person cannot feed millions, awareness begins with individual actions. Respecting bread trains the mind to think beyond personal comfort. It builds sensitivity toward others. A person who hesitates before wasting food is more likely to notice need, to share when possible, and to support solutions that reduce hunger. Small actions shape larger values. Hunger also affects the future. Children who grow up hungry suffer long-term consequences. Their physical growth is impaired, their ability to learn is weakened, and their emotional development is strained. Bread thrown away today contrasts sharply with a child who cannot concentrate in school because they have not eaten. When society normalizes waste, it indirectly accepts these consequences. Respecting bread becomes a quiet protest against a world where such suffering is tolerated. There is also a spiritual and ethical lesson in hunger. Many traditions teach that blessings are accompanied by responsibility. Having food is not merely a personal privilege, it is a trust. That trust demands awareness of those who lack what we have. Bread wasted without thought suggests a failure to recognize this responsibility. Honoring bread is a way of honoring the idea that abundance should lead to compassion, not indifference. Hunger teaches humility. It reminds us how quickly circumstances can change. Many people who experience hunger today once lived comfortably. Economic shifts, illness, conflict, or disaster can remove security without warning. Bread reminds us that stability is fragile. Respecting it acknowledges that what we have today is not guaranteed tomorrow. This awareness fosters empathy rather than judgment toward those who struggle. Waste also shapes attitudes over time. When people become accustomed to throwing food away, hunger becomes invisible. It fades into the background noise of statistics and headlines. Respecting bread reverses this effect. It keeps hunger present in the conscience. It forces a moment of reflection. Someone else could have used this. That moment matters. It keeps humanity intact. Avoiding waste does not require guilt or fear. It requires mindfulness, planning meals, taking reasonable portions, sharing excess food, and valuing leftovers are simple acts with deep meaning. They acknowledge the existence of hunger without pretending one person can solve it alone. They say, "I refuse to be careless in a world where others lack necessities." In conclusion, millions of people go hungry, and this reality gives bread immense moral weight. When bread is thrown into the trash, it reflects a disconnect from suffering and an indifference to inequality. When bread is respected, it becomes a symbol of awareness, compassion, and responsibility. By choosing not to waste bread, we affirm that hunger matters, that human life matters, and that abundance should never blind us to the needs of others. Respect for bread builds gratitude because it trains the human heart to recognize blessings rather than overlook them. Gratitude does not appear automatically. It is cultivated through attention and care. Bread, being simple and everyday, is one of the most powerful tools for developing this awareness. When something is always present, it is easy to forget its value. Yet the most constant things in life are often the most essential. Bread feeds the body daily, quietly sustaining life without demanding attention. Learning to respect it teaches a person to notice what is given regularly and to stop taking it for granted. Gratitude begins with recognition. When a person pauses before wasting bread, they acknowledge that it has value. This pause may seem small, but it reshapes the way the mind works. Instead of seeing food as automatic and endless, it becomes something meaningful. This shift affects more than eating habits. It influences how a person views life as a whole. A grateful mindset grows when people learn to see what they have rather than constantly focusing on what they lack. Bread, as a basic blessing, anchors gratitude in daily life. Modern life often encourages dissatisfaction. Advertising, comparison, and excess make people feel that what they have is never enough. In such an environment, gratitude weakens. Food becomes just another consumable object, easily replaced and easily discarded. Respecting bread pushes back against this mindset. It reminds people that not everything is replaceable, and not everything should be treated casually. When bread is honored, abundance no longer breeds carelessness. It breeds appreciation. Gratitude is also closely tied to humility. To respect bread is to admit dependence. No one creates bread alone, and no one survives without nourishment. This realization humbles the ego. It breaks the illusion of complete self-sufficiency. When people accept that their lives are sustained by factors beyond their control, nature, society, effort, and provision, they become more grateful. Bread becomes a daily reminder that life itself is a gift, not an entitlement. Children learn gratitude through example more than instruction. When they see adults respecting bread, saving it, sharing it, and speaking about it with care, they absorb these values naturally. They learn that blessings are not disposable. This lesson extends beyond food. A child who learns to appreciate bread is more likely to appreciate time, relationships, and opportunities. Gratitude learned at the table follows a person into every area of life. Respecting bread also deepens gratitude by connecting it to awareness of others. When people remember that many do not have enough, appreciation for what they have increases. Gratitude is not guilt, it is clarity. It does not demand shame for having food, but responsibility in how it is treated. Bread reminds people that comfort is not universal. This awareness softens the heart and strengthens thankfulness for even simple meals. Gratitude expressed through action is more powerful than words. Saying thank you is meaningful, but living with care demonstrates deeper appreciation. Choosing not to waste bread is a form of active gratitude. It turns an inner feeling into an outward behavior. Over time, such behaviors shape character. A grateful person becomes more patient, less entitled, and more content. Respect for bread is a daily practice that reinforces these traits. There is also emotional peace in gratitude. Constant dissatisfaction creates restlessness and anxiety. Gratitude brings calm. When people learn to value what they have, they experience greater stability and satisfaction. Bread, as a daily presence, provides repeated opportunities to practice this mindset. Each meal becomes a moment to recognize sufficiency rather than excess. Disrespect for bread, on the other hand, weakens gratitude. When food is wasted without thought, appreciation fades. This habit spreads. Soon, nothing feels special, and nothing feels enough. People begin to demand more while valuing less. This cycle leads to emptiness rather than fulfillment. Respecting bread interrupts this pattern. It recenters attention on what truly sustains life. Gratitude also strengthens social bonds. A grateful person is more likely to share, to give, and to act generously. When bread is respected, sharing becomes natural. Excess is offered rather than discarded. This builds trust and compassion within communities. Gratitude turns private awareness into collective well-being. In conclusion, respect for bread builds gratitude by teaching awareness, humility, responsibility, and contentment. It transforms an ordinary object into a daily reminder of life's blessings. When bread is honored, gratitude grows, not just for food, but for life itself. By choosing to respect something as simple as bread, people learn to recognize abundance without arrogance and blessings without forgetfulness, strengthening both character and humanity. Carelessness with food weakens values because everyday actions quietly shape moral character. Values are not formed only through big decisions or dramatic moments. They are built through repeated habits, especially the small ones that seem insignificant. How a person treats food, something essential, shared and tied to life itself, reveals and reinforces deeper attitudes about responsibility, respect, and self-control. When food, particularly bread, is wasted without thought, it signals a gradual erosion of these values. Food waste often begins with indifference. A piece of bread becomes stale, unwanted, or inconvenient, and instead of considering alternatives, it is thrown away. This act may feel harmless, but it reflects a mindset that prioritizes convenience over consideration. Over time, this mindset spreads. If it is acceptable to waste food, it becomes easier to waste time, opportunities, and even relationships. The habit of carelessness does not remain limited to one area of life. It quietly expands. Values like respect and responsibility are learned through practice. Respecting bread teaches restraint, taking only what one needs, planning ahead, and thinking beyond the moment. When these practices are ignored, discipline weakens. A person accustomed to waste becomes less patient and more impulsive. They expect abundance to always be available and become frustrated when it is not. This expectation feeds entitlement, which directly undermines humility and gratitude. Carelessness with food also dulls empathy. When waste becomes normal, awareness of hunger fades. People stop thinking about those who struggle to eat and begin to view food as endlessly replaceable. This disconnect weakens compassion. A society that wastes food easily may also find it easier to ignore poverty, inequality, and suffering. The inability to value what sustains life makes it harder to value life itself. There is also a link between waste and accountability. Values thrive where people feel responsible for their choices. Food waste avoids accountability by treating consequences as invisible. The environmental impact, the economic cost, and the social implications are ignored. This avoidance reinforces a habit of looking away from responsibility rather than facing it. Over time, this habit weakens integrity as people grow comfortable with actions that have hidden costs. Carelessness teaches the wrong lessons to future generations. Children observe behavior more closely than words. When they see food being thrown away casually, they learn that waste is acceptable and that resources are unlimited. This lesson conflicts with values like stewardship, fairness, and gratitude. Once these attitudes are ingrained, they are difficult to reverse. Respect for bread, therefore, is not just about the present. It is about preserving values for the future. Values also rely on mindfulness. A thoughtful person considers the impact of their actions. Carelessness with food reflects a lack of presence. Meals become rushed, portions become excessive, and leftovers are ignored. This lack of awareness spreads to other parts of life, reducing reflection and intentionality. Respecting food encourages slowing down and paying attention, qualities that strengthen moral judgment. Waste also distorts priorities. When people discard food easily, it suggests that comfort matters more than conscience. This distortion can influence decisions in business, politics, and personal relationships. The small habit of food waste reinforces a larger pattern of choosing ease over ethics. Values weaken not because people reject them openly, but because they stop practicing them daily. Respect for bread counteracts this decline by reinforcing core principles. It encourages planning, moderation, and foresight. It reminds people that actions have consequences, even when those consequences are not immediately visible. These reminders strengthen responsibility and self-awareness. Over time, they build a character that is attentive rather than careless. Carelessness with food also affects community. Shared meals are moments of connection. When food is treated casually, these moments lose meaning. Respect for bread restores significance to eating together, sharing, and caring for one another. It reinforces social values like generosity and mutual respect. In conclusion, carelessness with food weakens values by promoting indifference, entitlement, and lack of accountability. It erodes empathy, discipline, and mindfulness, shaping character in subtle but lasting ways. By choosing to respect bread and avoid waste, individuals strengthen their values daily. This simple act reinforces responsibility, compassion, and integrity, ensuring that moral principles remain alive not only in words but in practice. Bread teaches humility because it reminds human beings of their dependence, limitations, and shared vulnerability. In a world that often celebrates independence, power, and control, bread quietly delivers a different lesson. No one survives alone. No matter how intelligent, wealthy, or strong a person may be, they cannot live without nourishment. Bread reduces everyone to the same basic truth: we all need to eat. This realization humbles the ego and places every human being on equal ground. Humility begins with acknowledging dependence. Bread does not come from human will alone. It depends on soil, water, weather, time, and cooperation. Even the most advanced technology cannot guarantee a harvest without favorable conditions. This teaches that control is limited and that life relies on forces beyond individual command. When a person respects bread, they recognize that success and survival are not purely self-made. This awareness softens arrogance and replaces it with modesty. Bread also humbles by revealing how fragile comfort truly is. A full table can disappear quickly due to illness, conflict, economic hardship, or disaster. History is filled with examples of societies that experienced abundance one moment and scarcity the next. Bread reminds us that stability is not permanent. Respecting it keeps a person grounded, aware that fortune can change and that pride built on comfort is unstable. Humility grows when people understand that what they have today is not guaranteed tomorrow. Eating bread also connects people across social divisions. Rich and poor, educated and uneducated, powerful and powerless, all require food. Bread ignores status. It does not favor titles or achievements. This shared need humbles those who believe themselves superior and affirms the dignity of those who feel overlooked. When bread is respected, it becomes a symbol of equality, reminding everyone that human worth is not measured by possessions but by shared humanity. Humility is also learned through the effort bread represents. Behind every loaf are countless people whose labor supports others. Recognizing this creates respect for work that often goes unnoticed. It challenges the idea that some lives matter more than others. A person who respects bread is more likely to respect workers, farmers, and laborers, understanding that their efforts are essential. This recognition humbles the mind and expands appreciation beyond personal achievement. Bread further teaches humility by encouraging restraint. Taking only what one needs requires self-control. Overindulgence often stems from ego, the desire to consume without limit. Respecting bread counters this impulse. It encourages moderation and thoughtfulness. A humble person does not take more than necessary, knowing that excess can deprive others or lead to waste. This restraint reflects inner discipline, a key component of humility. There is also a spiritual humility in bread. Many traditions view food as a blessing rather than a right. Bread becomes a daily reminder that life is sustained through grace, not entitlement. Whether one interprets this spiritually or philosophically, the lesson remains. Existence is supported by factors beyond personal merit. Recognizing this fosters gratitude and humility together, anchoring the heart in appreciation rather than demand. Disrespect for bread often accompanies arrogance. When food is wasted carelessly, it suggests a belief that resources are endless and that one is above consequence. This mindset erodes humility and encourages entitlement. Over time, such attitudes distance people from reality and from others. Respecting bread corrects this imbalance by reintroducing limits and reminding individuals of their place within a larger system. Humility learned through bread extends into relationships. A humble person listens more, judges less, and shares more willingly. When bread is treated with care, sharing becomes natural. Excess is offered rather than discarded. This generosity strengthens bonds and reduces isolation. Bread thus becomes a teacher not only of personal humility, but of social harmony. Humility also protects against ingratitude. When people forget their dependence, they complain more and appreciate less. Bread brings focus back to essentials. It quiets unnecessary desires and highlights what truly sustains life. This perspective simplifies priorities and reduces arrogance driven by comparison and competition. In conclusion, bread teaches humility by reminding humans of their dependence, equality, fragility, and shared need. It challenges arrogance, encourages restraint, and restores awareness of interconnectedness. Respecting bread is a daily lesson in modesty and gratitude, grounding individuals in reality and compassion. By honoring something as simple as bread, people learn one of the most profound virtues, the humility that keeps humanity balanced, connected, and humane. Saving bread strengthens society because small acts of responsibility, when practiced collectively, create strong moral and social foundations. Society is not held together only by laws, institutions, or systems of power. It is held together by everyday behavior, shared values, and mutual consideration. How people treat something as simple as bread reflects how they treat resources, responsibilities, and one another. When bread is saved rather than wasted, it signals a culture of care, awareness, and respect that benefits everyone. Bread is often shared. It appears at family tables, community gatherings, places of worship, and moments of hospitality. When bread is valued, sharing becomes natural. Instead of being discarded, it is offered to others, saved for later use, or given to those in need. These small acts of sharing strengthen trust and connection. Communities grow stronger when people feel that resources are respected and distributed thoughtfully rather than wasted carelessly. Saving bread also promotes social responsibility. It encourages people to think beyond themselves and consider the impact of their actions. A person who saves bread is more likely to plan meals carefully, take reasonable portions, and avoid excess. These habits reflect discipline and foresight, qualities essential for a healthy society. When individuals act responsibly in small matters, they are more likely to act responsibly in larger ones, such as finances, relationships, and civic duties. Waste weakens society by normalizing disregard. When food is thrown away casually, it creates an environment where neglect feels acceptable. Over time, this attitude extends to public spaces, shared resources, and even human lives. Saving bread counters this trend by reinforcing the idea that what sustains life deserves care. It nurtures a sense of stewardship, reminding people that resources are not infinite and that everyone has a role in preserving them. Saving bread also reduces inequality in practical ways. While one act alone cannot eliminate hunger, collective mindfulness can make a difference. Communities that value food waste less tend to create systems for redistribution, sharing, and support. Leftover food reaches shelters, neighbors, or families in need. This builds solidarity and reduces the social gap between those who have more and those who have less. Bread becomes a bridge rather than a divider. There is also a cultural strength that comes from respecting bread. Cultures that honor food tend to preserve traditions of hospitality, gratitude, and mutual care. These traditions create identity and continuity. They remind people that they belong to something larger than themselves. Saving bread reinforces these cultural values and prevents society from becoming purely consumption-driven. Saving bread strengthens families as well. Children who grow up seeing food treated with respect learn discipline and empathy. They understand limits, value effort, and develop awareness of others' needs. These qualities prepare them to be responsible citizens. Families that practice mindfulness around food often communicate better, share more, and build stronger bonds. These family units become the building blocks of a stable society. There is also an environmental dimension that affects society as a whole. Food waste strains land, water, and energy resources. Saving bread reduces unnecessary strain on these systems, contributing to sustainability. A society that cares for its environment protects its future. Bread saved today helps preserve resources for generations to come. Saving bread also restores dignity. When food is shared instead of wasted, it affirms the worth of those who receive it without shame. It reinforces the idea that society takes care of its members. This sense of dignity reduces alienation and resentment, strengthening social harmony. Ultimately, saving bread is about mindset. It teaches people to pause, reflect, and act consciously. This mindset spreads beyond food into how society handles conflict, difference, and challenge. Thoughtful societies are resilient societies. They respond rather than react, preserve rather than destroy, and care rather than discard. In conclusion, saving bread strengthens society by encouraging responsibility, sharing, sustainability, and compassion. It transforms small daily choices into powerful social values. When people respect bread, they respect effort, life, and each other. Through such simple acts, societies grow more connected, resilient, and humane, proving that even the smallest choices can shape a stronger world.